You know what would make this world a better place? Another Pickleball podcast. Hey there, Pickleballers. Welcome back to the PickleFit Podcast, the show that helps you get stronger, more mobile, and injury-proof so you can master the pickleball court. I'm your host, Coach Kevin. I'm a healthy aging expert, a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and each week we'll dive into simple, actionable tips on strength training, mobility, and nutrition to level up your game and keep you playing at your best, no matter your age or level. So grab your paddle, lace up those sneakers, and let's get PickleFit. This episode is brought to you by PickleFit, the ultimate fitness program designed specifically for those of us over 50 looking to step up our pickleball game. Are you ready to play harder, longer, and with more confidence on the court? If so, then PickleFit is just what you need. PickleFit is a 12-week workout program that focuses on building strength, increasing mobility, and dramatically reducing your risk of injury so you can master the sport without any setbacks. With customized workout plans available for both gym and home setting and video demonstrations for all exercises, PickleFit makes it easy to stay fit and active no matter your current fitness level. And here's the best part. For a limited time, as a listener of this podcast, you get lifetime access for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Just visit mypicklefit.com to join a community of like-minded individuals who are turning back the clock on the court. Don't let age slow you down. Head over to mypicklefit.com to get strong, get mobile, and stay injury-free so you can master the court. Hey folks, Coach Kevin here, and today I want to talk to you about exercise programming for the over 50 pickleball athlete. So last week we talked about some of the best exercises to help up your pickleball play and keep you injury-free. But this week I want to discuss how we might strategically apply these exercises into an optimal workout program. So before we get started, I want to make a distinction between exercising and following an exercise program. So let's take a couple examples. Let's take somebody who goes to the gym without a plan and just goes maybe from machine to machine. Maybe they have a circuit. They do the same exercises at the same weight, the same reps every single time they go. That's exercising, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's way better. That's infinitely better than just a sedentary lifestyle. So somebody who goes without a plan is just exercising. That's great. But what we're going to talk about today is programming. And you can think of it this way. A program is a roadmap with a goal that is strategically designed to move you closer to that goal. So in our case, that goal would be to make you a better, more injury-proof pickleball player. So with that in mind, let's talk about programming and some basic programming considerations. Let's build a framework, if you will, for building a program that's going to help. Again, our goal, remember, is to become a better, stronger, more athletic pickleball player, but equally as important, to become injury resistant, to really reduce our risk of getting hurt on the pickleball court. So as a personal trainer, I do a lot of programming, and I exclusively program for the over 50 crowd. In my other business, the Silver Edge, that's all we do, right? We're nutrition, exercise, lifestyle coaches. We work one-on-one with clients to help these people become stronger, leaner, healthier, more vital, etc. So we do tons of custom exercise programming over there. And some of the basic tenets that we want to keep in mind when we are programming, not just for the over 50 person who wants to maybe drop a few pounds and build a little bit of muscle, but specifically for those of you that want to up your pickleball game, we've got a few considerations here. And the first of which is we want to make sure that our programming, our exercise programming, incorporates all of the primal human movements. So people who study body mechanics or kinesiology have come up with these 7 primal movements that humans should be capable of doing. And those are the squat, the lunge, the hinge, the push, the pull, twist, and gate. So let's just briefly define what all of those are. A squat is what it sounds like. It's being able to get into that squat position and then without assistance, get back up out of that. Now, for those of us that are pickleball athletes, we want to add on to that. We want to be able to squat to full depth. So in other words, our hips being parallel or maybe even lower than our knees at the bottom of that squat with our feet flat on the ground. Don't want those heels coming up as we get into that squat position, and then to powerfully come back to a standing position. Furthermore, those of us that are serious about our pickleball game should be able to add load to that. So classically, that would be a barbell back squat, or there's a bunch of ways we could do goblet squats, a lot of ways we could load that. But being able to get into that full depth position, again, the hips even with the knees or even a little bit lower is desirable. So that's that expressing the full mobility of the squat and then being able to stand powerfully back up. That's the squat. The next primal movement is the lunge. Of course, we talked a lot about this movement last week, but that's being able to lunge forward, say with your right foot stepping forward, bringing that left knee down gently to the ground, and then to explosively and powerfully come back to the standing position, and then reverse sides. Do that with the left foot forward, right knee down, back explosively to standing position. That's the lunge. We should have that, again, that full range of motion. We should have the balance, the coordination, the stability, and the strength to do this movement. I think you can clearly see how that would translate over to pickleball play. The next primal movement is the hinge. Now, the hinge refers to a hip hinge, and this is classically expressed as, say, a deadlift in a gym, just bending over and picking up an object. Now, that could be something as light as a pickleball off the ground, or it could be a grandkid, it could be a sack fertilizer, or in the gym, it could be a barbell or even dumbbells. But that ability to hip hinge powerfully and safely is a very fundamental human movement. It is one of our primal movements that we should all have the ability to safely and powerfully express. The next two are push and pull. These are upper body movements. So if you think about a push, think about a push-up or a bench press or an overhead press where we're moving resistance away from us, or a pull where we are pulling now with our arms, shoulders, chest, back. We're pulling something towards us. So that might be, think a pull-up. That's where you're pulling vertically or horizontal, maybe a bent over row. That's where you're rowing. So again, we should have these capabilities in our bodies. And then we have twist. So this is the ability to have that core rotation. Very, very critical for those of us that want to be powerful and injury resistant pickleball players, that ability to twist. And the last one is gait, G-A-I-T. Gait refers to walking, running, skipping, hopping, jumping, leaping, cavorting, whatever you want, right? But that ability to run, to sprint, to hop, to move dynamically forwards, backwards, I think you can clearly see how that would be important, critical even for those of us that want to up our level of pickleball play. So there you go. Those are the 7 primal movements. And we want to have all of these as a part of any holistic program. Again, whether that's for healthy aging or whether that's for increasing your athleticism on a pickleball court. So that's the first of our programming considerations. Next up, we want to hit all the major muscle groups. As pickleball athletes, we want to be well-rounded. I mean, it's easy to see how we would want to be strong in our legs and powerful in the lower body because we're moving dynamically, explosively on the court. But just as important, we want full body strength. So when we think about major muscle groups, clearly we have lower body. So we have our quads, we have our hamstrings, we have our calves, we have our glutes. And then as we move up, we want that core musculature and strength. Now, notice I didn't say abs, I said core. As I said last week, our core is all of our musculature from hips to the chest, all the way around our body. So that includes our abs, but it includes all of the additional musculature in there as well. We want to be strong there. We certainly want strong, stable, mobile shoulder girdles. And to a lesser extent, we want to be able to express arm strength. We want to have some bicep, tricep, grip strength, etc. Just to be strong, capable, healthy human beings, as well as being improved pickleball players. And remember, anytime we increase strength in any of these muscle groups, we are also reducing our risk of injury. So we want to make sure our programming has all of our primal movements in there. And we want our programming to take into consideration all of our major muscle groups: back, chest, legs, arms, shoulders, and certainly core, all of that. Next up for programming considerations, we want our exercise selection to be functional. So if you remember last week, we talked about a few of my favorite exercises for pickleball athletes. All of them were functional movements that you could see have direct translation into pickleball play. So we want our programming, a program that's designed to make us stronger, make us more mobile, make us move quicker, faster, be more dynamically athletic, to have muscular endurance. We want all of our exercise selection and the programming in there to be functional towards that goal. Remember, our goal is to be improved, more injury-resistant players. So we want to keep that in mind, and all of our programming should reflect that. Next up, we want to prioritize compound exercises or compound movement over isolation exercises. Look, there's nothing wrong with isolation exercises, but far and away, the biggest bang for our buck are compound movements. So compound movements are movements or exercises that typically include more than one joint. So think squats and deadlifts and bench presses, push-ups. All of the movements we talked about last week are going to be compound movements and not isolation movements. An isolation movement might be a seated leg extension or a bicep curl. Again, nothing wrong with those exercises, and they could indeed be a good addition to a pickleball program, but we want to prioritize more of these compound movements. They're more functional. They have more translation over to the pickleball court in terms of athleticism, and they certainly are more powerful for increasing your injury resistance. And then also for programming considerations, I want to talk a little bit about the intention of our programming. So classically, as a personal trainer, we learn that, hey, we can train for strength, we can train for performance, we can train for hypertrophy, there's a bunch of different modalities of training, of resistance training. There's muscular conditioning, muscular endurance. And what we want is, our goal is to get stronger, get more mobile, to increase athleticism, but with that critical undertone of making us more injury resistant. So we want to choose rep ranges and sets and programming that reflects that goal. So if you're not familiar, I suppose we should talk for a minute about frequency, intention, and duration when it comes to programming, because these are, again, critical considerations as you come into a program that's designed to make you a better pickleball player. We talk about frequency. How often should you work out? For those of you that are serious about your pickleball, you're probably playing several times a week, maybe even a few times a week. You should work out 2 to 3 times a week. I love the formula of 3 days a week of full body exercise at about 45 minutes. So we're talking about frequency, intensity, and duration. There's your duration. That's that 45-minute to 60-minute exercise. Do you have to do that for optimal results? Not really. I've got clients that do 6 days a week of 15 minutes of strength training. We've got clients that do 5 day a week of body part split training. But really, for a pickleball athlete of aging, you can't go wrong with 3 days a week of full body training. Absolutely love that formula. And then before we leave these programming considerations, let's talk about intensity. How hard should you work out in each of these workouts? Here's the deal. Here's a good rule of thumb. Your workouts should leave you feeling better, not worse. So in other words, you shouldn't finish a workout feeling like, holy crap, I just beat myself up. You should not be sore. You should definitely not be sore the next day, or definitely not sore 2 days later. That's a sign that you're overdoing it. In fact, you are not progressing if you're overdoing it so much that you're sore 1-2 days later. And what we want to do is find that sweet spot of intensity. So there's this concept of rate of perceived exertion. You might see this written as RPE, rate of perceived exertion. And it's a scale from 1 to 10. Pretty simple. 1 is no effort at all. 10 is a max all-out effort. And your exercising when you're in this program should be about a 7, maybe an 8. So we're not getting up into that 9 or 10. We may, depends on how advanced you are, you may spend some time doing 9 and 10. But for those of you that are just starting out, certainly a 7 or an 8 on a rate of perceived exertion is exactly where you should be. That will allow you to get the benefits of strength training, but really not push it so much that you're actually doing more harm than good, or God forbid you get hurt doing your strength training. That should not be the case. So again, a good rule of thumb in general for programming consideration when it comes to intensity is you should leave that workout feeling strong, powerful, and empowered, not beat up and beat down and sore days later. Okay? All right. So there you go. There's some programming consideration that we want to consider when we're building or assessing a program, a strength training program that's specifically designed for those of us over 50 who want to improve our pickleball game. So next up, I want to talk about phases. So as a personal trainer, we think about training blocks. So regardless of what someone's goal is, very often in my other business, it's I want to lose weight. I want to burn some of this fat. So that's our goal. We are going to strength train with that goal in mind. Or I may have somebody come in, they're kind of scrawny and underweight, weak and frail, and their goal may be to pack on some actual lean muscle mass. So we program for that, and we program these in blocks. Now, for those of you listening to this, same thing applies. We want to have a phased approach. We want to do programming blocks. In other words, we're going to shift our intention over time in order to get you to the ultimate goal. Remember, our ultimate goal, make you a more injury-resistant player, make you a better player. So for our purposes and for our goal, I love using this formula for a phased approach to meet those goals. And these are the exact 3 phases that we use in our PickleFit program. If you're not familiar, mypicklefit.com, you can go over there and check that out. But we have 3 distinct phases. And the first phase is mobility and strength. The second phase is dynamic athleticism. And then the third phase, or third training block, is muscular conditioning. And the way that's written out in the My PickleFit program is those are 4-week blocks. So you have 4 weeks where you focus on strength and mobility. You have 4 weeks where you work on dynamic athleticism. And then you have another 4-week training block where you finish up working on some muscular conditioning. Now, there's no magic in 4 weeks. You'd want to get a minimum of 4 weeks in any training block, but those could just as easily have been 6-week or even 8-week training blocks. But I just want you guys to get this concept that when we're going towards our goal of being more injury-proof and increasing our skill, we want to have this phased approach, this framework of getting there. And first things first, we want a base of strength and mobility. I've said it before in this podcast. I'll probably say it in every single episode, but strength is the foundation of athletic movement. There's a reason that almost every athlete in almost every sport has a strength and conditioning coach. Basketball teams, golfers, everybody, they have, if you're playing at a very high level, you have a strength and conditioning coach whose job it is to just increase or maybe just maintain a certain level of strength and mobility. So that's where we're going to start with you guys. We're going to start with a strength and mobility phase, and it's just what it sounds like. This is a phase where if you've got some fat to lose, you should start dropping some fat during this phase, but you should absolutely increase lean muscle mass. Now, I'm not talking about anything crazy like bodybuilders. You don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. In fact, getting too big and too muscular would detract from your pickleball play. But having even just a modest amount of more lean muscle mass on your body will do a number of things. And look, we discussed this back in episode 2 in a little more detail, so I won't go into it here so much. But when we strength train, we increase muscle mass, so we put on some muscle. We increase bone density, so we have stronger bone. We increase joint integrity, so we make our joints, our ankles, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, elbows, we make them stronger when we strength train. All of this translates into you being a more injury resistant and overall more athletic person by just working on that basis of strength. Now, notice this is a strength and mobility phase, not a strength and flexibility phase. Flexibility is important, but mobility trumps that. When we talk about mobility, we're talking about a combination really of flexibility and strength. So in other words, mobility says, I have this full range of motion, but I have complete control. I have strength through this full range of motion. I can express my body through this full range of motion in a powerful, athletic way. Does that make sense? So that's really what we're focusing on in this first phase here, is working on making ourselves strong, increasing strength, increasing absolute strength, a little bit of muscle mass. For those of us that have some fat to lose, we absolutely should drop some fat in this phase as we're emphasizing strength training. And we want to work on that mobility, being able to express that strength in the full range of motion. So that is phase 1. Phase 2 is dynamic athleticism. And look, these are the names that I've got in my program. If you're looking at other programs, they could be named something differently, but I just want you guys to get the idea that we have this phased approach towards this end goal. And this is a roadmap or a framework to get you there. But regardless of the program that you choose, I strongly recommend that your program take strength and mobility as the foundation, and we're going to build on top of that. All right, so we built some strength and mobility. We've increased those things through that foundational phase 1. Let's move to phase 2, this next training block. In our program, it's called dynamic athleticism. But here's where you'll see some exercises that you might expect. This is probably what you were expecting when you think of, hey, a workout program designed for pickleball athletes should have a lot of jumping and leaping and lateral movements and expressing myself quickly and powerfully, explosively. And yes, you should. But think back to a lot of the news around pickleball for senior citizens. A lot of it's negative because a lot of us are getting hurt playing pickleball. Now, there's nothing inherently dangerous about pickleball, but what's happening is people that are sedentary very often are discovering the sport, falling in love with the sport, progressing with this sport, and maybe for the first time in years or maybe even decades, we find ourselves moving explosively in ranges of motion that we haven't done since we were, I don't know, in our 20s, since we were teenagers for some of us, in a very, very long time. And that's how we end up getting hurt. And that's why we want to start with that base of strength and mobility and then move into these more dynamic, explosive movements. So hopefully that's making sense to you folks. Now, when we get into this block of training, now we're moving into things where we're moving very athletically. We're expressing speed and strength together. That's power. So we want these powerful, dynamic, explosive movements. These are things like split squats and box jumps and snatches and push presses and things of that nature that have direct carryover into our pickleball skill on the court. So again, my area of expertise isn't to make you a more skillful or strategic player necessarily per se on the pickleball court. I'm a student of that myself. My area of expertise is getting you strong, capable, and making you a better all-around athlete so that you can have that foundation as you start to increase the skill and the strategy of the game. Now you've got this bedrock to pull on to really accelerate that progress there. So dynamic athleticism, really critical, but we have that as a second phase. We want to build a base of strength and mobility first. And then the third phase in our programming is called muscular conditioning. And here's where we're going to work on a little bit of higher volume. We're going to work on some conditioning. So we're going to have lighter weight, typically shorter rest periods. So working more on that engine. Some of you are playing pickleball in 2, 3, 4 hour blocks. Some of you that are the tournament warriors going to different tournaments every other weekend, playing back to back to back sometimes, having muscular conditioning, being able to go the distance. That's important as well. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what programming would look like from a multi-phased approach and how it might sequentially be laid out in order to really optimize your pickleball play. And just as critically, or probably more importantly, to keep us injury resistant. And that's what a good, well thought out, age appropriate, professionally designed program should look like. You should have a phase that you should have that foundational phase. You should have some sort of athletic phase. You should have some sort of muscular conditioning, tying all that together phase. So let's just say that you buy into that philosophy. Maybe you even bought our program, right? You bought this 12-week program. Now what? Let's say you complete 12 weeks of this program. What should you do after that? So we've just laid out that you have this first phase, second phase, third phase. You've gone through all 3 of those phases. What should you do next? Now you have a lot of options here. You could, and this would be my first recommendation, you could run that right back again. There's nothing to say you can't go back to strength run a 4-week block of strength, another 4-week block of dynamic athleticism, and another 4-week block of muscular conditioning. Ideal. That would be ideal. Or you could pick your favorite phase. For me, that's that dynamic athleticism. I really like that jumping around and expressing my strength athletically. That's a lot of fun to me. Maybe you just repeat that. Maybe, and this would be very strategic, maybe you choose that block that you're the weakest in. So if it's your movement, that dynamic athleticism, maybe you repeat that block. Or maybe it's that strength and mobility, and all of us could stand to shore that up regardless of where you are, whether you're advanced or just a beginner in that strength and mobility. All of us could use more of that. Or you could move into a more specific training block that's designed specifically to shore up maybe some of your weaknesses. This is for those of you that are looking at that 5.0 or 5.0 and above, or maybe you're like me, you're still thinking, hey, I'm going to go pro someday. You might want to have some very specific workout programming to shore up maybe some deficiencies in, say, lateral movement or some of that fast twitch muscle expression, etc. But really, I think at the end of that phased approach, my point here is, look, you could run that back again, and you could just rinse and repeat that over and over again. Or you could pick a phase that is your weak point, work on that a little bit, or just pick your favorite one. You can't really go wrong from there. But I just want to leave you with this thought. That strength and mobility should be a lifelong pursuit for you folks that want to up your game, want to decrease your chance of getting injured on or off the pickleball court. You should really have that core of strength and mobility. That should be a lifelong pursuit for you. Okay, so let's wrap up here with a discussion on the importance of progressive overload. So we've talked about programming consideration, having a framework to get you to your end goal, why that's important, how you might apply that. I want to finish here by talking about how to get the most out of this programming. And the way we do that is through this concept called progressive overload. Now, before I jump in and tell you exactly how to apply this, I want to start with a story. And this is a famous story. You may have heard it before. All strength and conditioning coaches know this story. They tell their clients that story. So you may have heard it before. But the story goes like this. There's this guy. His name is Milo. So he's Milo of Croton. And he was a superstar wrestler back in ancient Greece in 500 something BC. And he was known for these superhuman feats of strength. He was literally one of the first superstar athletes. And his story goes like this. One day, a calf was born near Milo. And when Milo was a young man, every day he would go out, he would pick up that calf, put it on his shoulders, and he would walk with it. And he did this every day until one day he was no longer carrying a calf, but he's carrying a full-grown bull. Now, again, this tale is told all the time by strength coaches because it's a great example of progressive overload. We're starting with these humble beginnings, and we're doing these small incremental progress, and it leads to these legendary rockstar results. So if we stress the body too little, it's going to wither, it's going to become weak, it's going to become frail. When we stress the body too much, remember we were talking about intensity, it's going to break. We're going to have injury, we're going to have burnout. We don't want that. We want to find that sweet spot in the middle. That sweet spot in the middle, so when we stress the body just the right amount, it will adapt. In our case, it will grow stronger and become more athletic and more injury-proof. And we call this the law of progressive overload. And like all laws, there's some basic rules. And I'm going to start here when we talk about progressive overload. Progressive overload starts, ends, and always observes correct form. So the idea is we want this small incremental progress, but we don't want progress where we have to sacrifice form. So first and foremost, proper form is always critical. So we're going to start there, right? Start, end, and always observing proper, correct form. Progressive overload requires a plan. It requires a program. And furthermore, it requires you documenting this. So if you do my PickleFit, it's all done in an app. So you could use an app to track your progress. You could use a notebook. But what you must do is have some way of recording all of your exercise workouts so that when that exercise comes up the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th time, you can look back at your history and say, oh, I did 3 sets of 10 with 1 minute of rest in between with 50 pounds. This time I'll do 3 sets of 11 with 50 pounds and 1 minute of rest. So keeping those other two variables, the load and the rest time the same, we're going to increase a rep every time. And then maybe we do 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 13. Then maybe we increase the weight and go back down to 3 sets of 10 again. But again, the idea that we're consistently adding a little bit more work every time. And the key's there being consistent and little. That's what's going to allow for the adaptation, these strength adaptations that we're looking for. So that's the third rule, right? We have, hey, we're going to observe proper form, we're going to have a plan, and we're going to be consistent. And I say this all the time in my other podcast, the Over 50 Health and Wellness podcast. Give that a shout out if you guys are interested in that. But I say all the time, look, even small, tiny progress done consistently over time can have huge results. And that's what we're looking for really with progressive overload is a small, consistent progress because done consistently over time, we're going to have massive, massive payoff at the end. Okay, folks, that's what I've got for you today. If you are interested in following a professionally designed, age-appropriate program that is specifically designed to improve your pickleball play and includes all of the elements we discussed here today, you guys head over to mypicklefit.com and you can check that out. But that's what I have for you today. So until next time, stay strong. Okay, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of the PickleFit Podcast. I hope you're feeling fired up to hit the court stronger and smarter. If you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to subscribe, please leave a review, and please share this with a fellow pickleballer. I'm asking you to help me grow this community of fit, fierce, and injury-free players. Until next time, stay strong, stay mobile, and keep crushing it out there. I'll see you on the court.